Have you ever sat at a family dinner, biting your tongue while someone else took the spotlight, their words drowning out your truth? That's where Emily Carter found herself one crisp April evening in Seattle, Washington, at her parents' cozy home near Lake Washington. The table was set with her mom's heirloom china, the kind reserved for special occasions like Easter Sunday. The air carried the scent of honey-glazed ham and fresh rolls, but beneath the warmth, a storm was brewing. Emily, 42, a powerhouse in the tech world, had spent years in the shadow of her older brother Michael, now 45. His voice dominated the room, as it always had, spinning tales of his startup's supposed success. But Emily knew the truth. His company was crumbling, and her own firm had just acquired it. Tonight, that truth was a weight in her chest, ready to break free. For those watching, this is a story of revenge, but not the kind you might expect. It's about reclaiming your voice after years of being dismissed, about the quiet strength it takes to stand tall. Emily's journey starts here, at a dinner table where every word feels like a test. She's not just fighting for recognition, she's wrestling with decades of resentment, built from childhood moments when Michael's achievements were celebrated while hers were overlooked. Growing up in a modest Seattle suburb, Emily was always the little sister, her business savvy dismissed as less impressive than Michael's coding trophies. Their parents, David and Margaret, didn't mean to play favorites, but Michael's tech brilliance dazzled them. When he built his first computer at 14, their dad, a retired accountant, looked at him like he'd cracked the code to the universe. Emily's science fair, wins, or leadership awards. Nice, but secondary. That dynamic followed them into adulthood. Emily clawed her way up at Cascade Solutions, a leading tech firm, becoming director of strategic acquisitions. She'd learned to speak the language of coders and executives alike, bridging worlds Michael never could. Yet, at family gatherings, he'd interrupt her promotions with news of his latest venture, dismissing her role as corporate fluff. Emily swallowed her anger, her success a secret she kept close, like a card she wasn't ready to play. But this Easter, the game was changing. Michael's startup, Next Wave Tech, was bleeding cash, and Emily's team had spotted it on their acquisition radar. She'd recused herself from direct negotiations, but her influence shaped the deal. Michael had no idea his sister held his company's fate in her hands. As the family gathered around the table, Michael held court, his voice booming with false confidence. He spoke of his strategic exit, painting the acquisition as his master plan. Emily's stomach twisted. She caught her grandmother Clara's eye, the only one who'd ever seen her true potential. At 80, Clara was sharp, her iPad always nearby, a former math professor who'd navigated a man's world. Her subtle nod told Emily to hold steady, but the tension was palpable. Emily's boyfriend, Thomas, a high school history teacher, squeezed her hand under the table. He knew the years of slights she'd endured, the way Michael's ego had dimmed her light. Tonight, that light was flickering, ready to burn bright. The emotional weight of this moment wasn't just about the acquisition. It was about every time Emily's voice was drowned out, every time her parents' pride tilted toward Michael. She wasn't just fighting for credit. She was fighting for her place in a family that had underestimated her for decades. The dinner table felt like a battlefield, each clink of silverware a countdown to confrontation. Emily's heart raced as Michael's lies grew bolder, his claim of orchestrating the deal a direct challenge to her reality. She could stay silent, as she had for years, or she could speak and risk shattering the fragile peace. The choice loomed, heavy as the spring rain outside. Picture the scene shifting now, from the warm glow of the dining room to a fleeting memory of Emily as a girl, standing in her childhood backyard, the Seattle skyline faint in the distance. She's holding a trophy, her smile fading as Michael boasts about his latest project. That memory fades back to the present, where Emily's hand tightens around her glass, her resolve hardening. If you've ever felt overlooked, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. Better yet, hit that like button and subscribe. It takes a second and helps us share stories like Emily's with others who get it. This isn't just a story of corporate maneuvering, it's a deeply human struggle to be seen. Emily's not perfect. She's carried her resentment like a stone, letting it grow heavier with each slight. But tonight, she's on the edge of something bigger. The question isn't just whether she'll speak up, but whether she can do so without losing herself to the anger she's held for so long. As the dinner conversation shifts, Michael's voice grows louder, oblivious to the storm he's stirring. Emily's moment is coming, and with it, a chance to rewrite her family's story. But how did she get here, to this point of no return? Let's step back to understand the roots of this rivalry, where it all began. What's it like to grow up knowing your best will never be enough in someone else's eyes? For Emily Carter, that was the story of her childhood in a quiet Seattle suburb, where her brother Michael's shadow loomed large. As we left her at the Easter dinner table, gripping her glass while Michael spun lies about his startup's success, the weight of decades pressed down. This wasn't just about one night. It was about a rivalry rooted in years of dismissal, a fire that fueled Emily's quiet rise in the tech world. To understand why she's on the verge of shattering her family's illusions, we need to go back to the moments that shaped her resolve and set her on a path toward revenge. Emily and Michael grew up in a modest home near Green Lake, where the hum of family life was punctuated by Michael's relentless need to shine. At 14, he was already a tech prodigy, building computers in the garage while their dad, David, marveled at his knack for code. Emily, 3 years younger, was no slouch. She won science fairs, led school clubs, and had a knack for seeing the big picture. But her trophies gathered dust on the shelf, overshadowed by Michael's robotics awards and his acceptance to MIT at 17. Their parents, David and Margaret, didn't mean to favor him, but their awe was palpable. When Emily brought home a business award at 16, her mom smiled and said, "That's sweet, honey," before asking Michael about his latest coding project. The message was clear. Michael was the star, and Emily was the supporting act. That dynamic carved a deep wound. Emily learned early to keep her ambitions quiet, her successes private. While Michael bragged about his internship at a Silicon Valley giant, Emily poured herself into her business studies at the University of Washington. She wasn't chasing code, she was chasing systems, the kind that made tech companies thrive. Her grandmother Clara saw it first. At 80, Clara was a force, a former math professor who'd fought for her place in academia. Over coffee during Emily's college years, Clara told her, "You've got a gift, Emily. You see how people and ideas connect. That's power." Those words became Emily's anchor, pushing her to excel at Cascade Solutions, where she rose from marketing to director of strategic acquisitions by 40. But Michael never saw it. At family gatherings, he'd dismiss her career with a smirk, calling her work corporate nonsense while boasting about his startup, Next Wave Tech. Emily swallowed her frustration, her silence a shield against his arrogance. She'd learned to navigate his ego, but each slight added fuel to a fire she barely acknowledged. By her late 30s, she was a force in Seattle's tech scene, brokering deals that shaped the industry. Yet, at home, she was still the little sister, her voice drowned out by Michael's technical jargon. He'd toss around terms like machine learning and blockchain, knowing their parents wouldn't understand, positioning himself as the family's tech genius. Emily's promotions director at 38, a team of 15 by 40, went unnoticed, overshadowed by Michael's endless self-promotion. The turning point came a year before that fateful Easter dinner. Emily's team at Cascade Solutions was scouting acquisition targets, looking for startups with strong tech but weak fundamentals. One name caught her eye, Next Wave Tech, Michael's company. She froze, her heart racing as she read the report. His startup was bleeding cash. its innovative AI tech buried under poor management and unsustainable costs. For the first time, Emily saw Michael's empire for what it was, a house of cards. But there was something else, a whisper of a deal in the report's margins. Michael had been pitching to investors, hinting at a partnership with Elon Musk, a name that carried weight. Was it true, or another of his exaggerations? The possibility stung, a reminder of his relentless ambition, even as his company teetered. Emily's first instinct was to step back. A conflict of interest could taint her reputation, and she'd worked too hard to risk that. She disclosed the situation to her boss, Laura Bennett, who agreed Emily should recuse herself from direct negotiations, but could advise. As the acquisition process began, Emily watched from the sidelines, her curiosity growing. Michael's company was a mess-great tech, terrible execution. The very skills he'd mocked her for, business strategy and market insight, were what his startup lacked. The irony wasn't lost on her, but the Musk connection nagged at her. If Michael had secured a deal with a titan like that, it could complicate the acquisition and her plan. Emotionally, Emily was torn. Part of her wanted to save Michael's company, to preserve the tech he'd built. But another part, the one that remembered every condescending laugh, wanted him to face the truth. She wasn't plotting revenge, not yet, but the seeds were there, sprouting in the quiet moments when she imagined his shock at her role. The acquisition wasn't personal, she told herself. It was business, but business, she knew, could carry a personal edge. As the deal progressed, Michael remained oblivious, still lecturing her at family dinners about tech's real players. His ignorance was both a shield and a spark, pushing Emily closer to a reckoning. Imagine the scene fading to a young Emily, standing in her childhood bedroom, staring at a vision board filled with dreams of leadership. The camera pans to a photo of her and Michael, smiling as kids, before cutting back to her now, her eyes sharp with determination. If you've ever been underestimated, hit that subscribe button. It's quick, and it keeps you in the loop for stories like this. This moment in Emily's life isn't just about a corporate deal. It's about reclaiming a voice she'd silenced for too long. But what happens when she discovers the full scope of Michael's ambitions? The answer lies in a single document that changes everything. Ever wonder what it feels like to hold someone's fate in your hands, knowing one move could unravel their world? Emily Carter stood at that crossroads in her sleek Seattle office, staring at a report that could change everything. As we left her, she'd uncovered the truth about her brother Michael's failing startup, Next Wave Tech, now a target for her company's acquisition. But a whisper of Michael's secret deal with Elon Musk had stirred a storm inside her. This wasn't just about saving or sinking his company. It was about proving she'd outgrown his shadow. With the Easter dinner looming, Emily's discovery of a hidden alliance pushed her closer to a corporate coup, one that could redefine her family's story. Months before that tense family gathering, Emily's team at Cascade Solutions was deep in due diligence on Next Wave Tech. The numbers painted a grim picture: innovative AI algorithms, yes, but a business model that bled cash faster than a Seattle rainstorm filled the streets. Michael's startup was 3 months from collapse, its engineers talented but directionless, its marketing non-existent. Emily, 42, had seen this before: brilliant tech undone by poor strategy. As director of strategic acquisitions, she'd built a reputation for spotting diamonds in the rough, turning struggling startups into assets. But this was personal. Michael, 45, had spent years dismissing her as a corporate cog, unaware she now held his company's lifeline. Then came the bombshell. Late one evening, Emily's assistant, Rachel, slid a folder across her desk. Inside was a leaked email from Michael to an investor, hinting at a handshake deal with Elon Musk's team at Neuralink. The message was vague but electrifying. Musk's interest could validate Next Wave's tech, maybe even save it. Emily's pulse quickened. If Michael had a tech titan in his corner, her acquisition plan wasn't just a business move. It was a direct challenge to his ambition. But the email raised questions. Was Musk truly involved, or was this another of Michael's exaggerations, a desperate bid to lure investors? Emily needed answers, and fast. She called a discreet meeting with her chief strategy officer, Laura Bennett, in a quiet corner of a Pike Place Market cafe, away from prying eyes. Over coffee, Emily laid out the situation. Laura, a seasoned executive with a knack for cutting through noise, listened intently. Your brother's deal with Musk could complicate things, Laura said, stirring her latte. If it's real, Neuralink might counter our offer. If it's a bluff, we're still clear to move. But you're too close to this, Emily. Stay in an advisory role. Keep it clean. Emily nodded, her mind racing. She'd already recused herself from direct negotiations, but the Musk angle added a new layer of stakes. This wasn't just about acquiring a failing startup. It was about outmaneuvering Michael's ego. The emotional toll was heavy. Emily had spent years proving herself in a tech world that often echoed Michael's condescension. Every boardroom pitch, every late-night strategy session had been a step towards silencing his voice in her head, the one that called her achievements less than. Now, with Next Wave in her sights, she felt a dangerous pull. Part of her wanted to save Michael's tech, to give his team a chance under Cascade's resources. But another part, raw and unyielding, wanted him to face the truth. His brilliance wasn't enough without the skills he'd mocked in her. The Musk connection, real or not, felt like a betrayal, a reminder that Michael would always reach for the spotlight, even at the cost of honesty. As the acquisition moved forward, Emily dug deeper. She tasked Rachel with cross-referencing Michael's claims, pulling investor reports and industry chatter. The findings were murky. Musk's team had met with Michael, but no deal was confirmed. It was enough to keep Emily on edge, her instincts sharpened by years of navigating corporate games. Then, a week before Easter, a tense moment shifted her perspective. During a strategy session, a junior analyst, unaware of Emily's connection, remarked, "Next Wave's founder thinks he's untouchable, name-dropping Musk like it's a golden ticket." The room chuckled, but Emily's jaw tightened. Michael's arrogance wasn't just a family trait. It was a liability, one that could tank the deal if he overplayed his hand. That comment sparked a fire. Emily realized this wasn't just about revenge. It was about accountability. Michael had built a narrative of invincibility, but his company's survival depended on her team's expertise. She advised Laura to tighten the acquisition terms, ensuring Cascade got the tech without overpaying for Michael's inflated ego. It was a calculated move, one that balanced ethics with a quiet assertion of power. But as the deal closed, Emily felt a pang of doubt. Was she crossing a line, letting personal history cloud her judgment? The question lingered, heavy as the fog rolling off Puget Sound. Picture the scene shifting to Emily's office, her desk cluttered with reports, the Seattle skyline glowing through the window. The camera zooms in on that leaked email, Michael's words bold on the screen, before fading to her steely gaze. If you're hooked on this story of sibling rivalry, drop a comment with your thoughts. Have you ever faced someone who underestimated you? Hit that like button to keep these tales coming. Emily's plan is in motion, but the real test is yet to come. With the acquisition finalized and Easter dinner just days away, she's about to step into a confrontation that could change her family forever. What happens when the truth hits the table? Can a single moment at a dinner table unravel decades of lies? Emily Carter was about to find out. As we left her, she'd orchestrated the acquisition of her brother Michael's failing startup, Next Wave Tech, her company's move, both a business decision and a quiet act of defiance. She'd uncovered hints of Michael's secret pitch to Elon Musk, a revelation that sharpened her resolve. Now, on Easter Sunday, in a Seattle home glowing with spring light, Emily sat across from Michael, his boasts filling the air. The table was set for a family celebration, but for Emily, it was a stage for truth. Tonight, the facade Michael had built would crumble, and the fallout would shake their family to its core. The dining room in David and Margaret Carter's home near Lake Washington was a picture of tradition. Crystal glasses caught the chandelier's glow, and the table groaned with ham, scalloped potatoes, and Margaret's famous yeast rolls. Emily, 42, felt the tension in her shoulders as Michael, 45, held court, his voice loud with false confidence. He spoke of his startup's acquisition as a brilliant exit, a chess move he'd planned all along. Their parents nodded, impressed, while Emily's boyfriend, Thomas, gripped her hand under the table. He knew the truth. She'd been the architect of the deal, and Michael was clueless. Her grandmother Clara, 80 and sharp as ever, caught Emily's eye, her nod a silent signal. The moment was near. Emily's heart pounded. For years, she'd let Michael's arrogance slide. Her own success at Cascade Solutions kept quiet to avoid his scorn. But tonight, his lies were too much. He leaned back, smirking, and said, "Tech's a young man's game, Dad. You've got to know when to cash out. Not everyone gets the long game right, Emily." The jab landed, and the table grew quiet. Emily took a slow breath, her voice steady but laced with steel. "Actually, Michael, let's talk about that long game. Did you tell everyone how Next Wave was 3 months from bankruptcy, or how Cascade Solutions saved it?" The room froze. Michael's fork clattered against his plate, his face flushing. "What are you talking about?" he stammered. Emily pressed on, her tone calm but unrelenting. "I'm the director of strategic acquisitions at Cascade. My team identified your company as a target. I recused myself from negotiations, but I advised on the deal. Your tech was great, but your business was a mess. We bought it to save the IP and your team's jobs." Michael's eyes widened, disbelief turning to rage. "That's a lie. You're in marketing, for God's sake. You're trying to steal my thunder." The accusation stung, but Emily held her ground. "I've been in acquisitions for 2 years, Michael. You'd know that if you ever asked about my work instead of lecturing me on what real tech is." Their mother, Margaret, looked stricken. "Emily, honey, you're saying you bought his company?" Before Emily could answer, Michael's wife, Sarah, spoke softly. "It's true, Michael. I saw Emily's name on the paperwork. I thought you knew." The betrayal in Michael's glare was palpable. "You knew and didn't tell me?" He snapped at Sarah, who shrank back, her voice trembling. "I assumed you'd talk to her." The table erupted in murmurs. David, their father, raised a hand. "Hold on. Emily, you're saying you're some big shot at Cascade? Why didn't we know?" The question hit Emily like a wave. "Because no one asked, Dad. I've been climbing the ladder for years, but Michael's always made sure his story drowned out mine." Michael shoved back from the table, his chair scraping the hardwood. "This is sabotage. You targeted my company to humiliate me." Emily's voice stayed level. "Your company was failing, Michael. The acquisition was a lifeline, not a trap. But you can't stand that I was part of it, can you?" The emotional weight of the moment was crushing. Emily wasn't just exposing Michael's failure. She was dismantling a family narrative that had cast her as secondary for decades. Every word was a release, but it came with a cost: her parents' shock, Sarah's discomfort, Michael's fury. Clara's steady gaze anchored her, a reminder that truth, however painful, was worth it. But as Michael stormed toward the door, Emily felt a flicker of doubt. Had she gone too far, letting years of resentment spill over in one night? Imagine the scene fading to a close-up of Emily's face, her eyes torn between resolve and regret, as Michael's footsteps echo out the front door. The camera pulls back to the stunned faces around the table, then cuts to a soft Seattle rain falling outside. If this showdown hit home, Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to call out a family member's lies? Hit that like button to support more stories like this. The air is thick with tension, but the truth isn't done with Emily yet. A discovery waits, one that could push her revenge to a darker edge. What do you do when the truth you fought for reveals a wound deeper than you imagined? Emily Carter stood on the edge of that question, the echoes of her brother Michael's angry exit still ringing in her ears. The Easter dinner in their parents' Seattle home had turned into a battlefield, with Emily exposing Michael's failing startup and her role in its acquisition by Cascade Solutions. His lies about a brilliant exit had crumbled, but the cost was a fractured family moment. Now, as the dust settled, a new revelation waited, an email that would test Emily's resolve, pushing her to choose between vengeance and a higher path. The stakes were no longer just about pride. They were about who she'd become. The dining room was quiet after Michael stormed out, the clink of silverware replaced by uneasy glances. Emily, 42, sat under the weight of her family's stares, their shock palpable. Her parents, David and Margaret, struggled to process her role as a tech powerhouse. Her grandmother Clara, 80, offered a steady nod, but even she seemed to sense the storm wasn't over. Emily's boyfriend, Thomas, squeezed her hand, his presence a reminder of the years she'd spent proving herself in silence. The confrontation had been cathartic, but it left Emily raw, her heart torn between vindication and regret. Had she shattered Michael's ego to lift her own, or was this truly about truth? Before anyone could speak, Emily's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, expecting a work update, but the sender's name stopped her cold. Rachel, her assistant. The subject line read, "Urgent, next wave follow-up." Against her better judgment, Emily opened it. The email contained a forwarded message from Michael's personal account, intercepted during due diligence. In it, he'd written to an investor, boasting not just about a potential deal with Elon Musk's Neuralink, but something worse. He'd claimed Emily's career was a fluke, a diversity hire who'd lucked into her role at Cascade Solutions. He'd used her name to discredit her, suggesting she'd never understand Next Wave's tech, all to inflate his own credibility. The words hit like a punch. Emily's breath caught, her fingers tightening around the phone. This wasn't just arrogance, it was betrayal, a deliberate attempt to diminish her to save his own skin. The family's murmurs faded as she processed the email, her mind racing. Michael hadn't just underestimated her, he'd weaponized her success against her. The Musk deal, shaky as it was real enough to have drawn interest, but Michael's lies about her were personal, a calculated move to keep her in his shadow. For a moment, Emily saw red. She could leak this email to the board, ensuring Michael's advisory role at Cascade was cut short. She could bury him professionally, letting his pride choke on the truth. But as the anger surged, a quieter voice broke through, one shaped by years of Clara's wisdom. Revenge might feel good, but it wouldn't heal the wound Michael's words had reopened. Emily glanced at her parents, their faces etched with worry, and at Sarah, Michael's wife, who looked lost. Destroying Michael wouldn't just hurt him, it would ripple through the family, maybe beyond repair. Emily's role at Cascade gave her power, but power, Clara had once said, was only as good as the heart behind it. The temptation to strike was strong, but so was the pull to rise above, to prove she was more than the resentment she'd carried. She set the phone down, her hands trembling. The email changed everything, but it also clarified something. This wasn't just about Michael's failure. It was about her own strength. She'd built her career on integrity, not spite. Leaking the email would be easy, but it would tie her to Michael's pettiness, a cycle she'd fought to break. Instead, she could confront him privately, demand accountability without burning bridges. The choice wasn't just about him, it was about who she wanted to be when the dust settled. As the family began to speak, asking hesitant questions about her career, Emily felt a shift. The truth she'd spoken at dinner had cracked open a door. Now she had to decide what to carry through it. The emotional weight was dizzying. Emily had spent decades proving herself, only to find Michael's betrayal cut deeper than his dismissal ever had. Yet in that pain, she saw a chance not to destroy, but to rebuild. She could hold Michael to account, but with clarity, not cruelty. The family's newfound interest in her work, sparked by the showdown, was a fragile gift. She wouldn't squander it on vengeance. But the email lingered, a ticking bomb she'd have to face. Picture the scene, fading to Emily's hand, setting the phone down, her face a mix of resolve and vulnerability. The camera pans to the dining room window, where Seattle's skyline glimmers under a spring moon, then back to her steadying breath. If this story's got you thinking about your own family battles, drop a comment below. How do you handle betrayal? Hit that subscribe button to stay with us. Emily's choice is coming, but first, she must face Michael one last time. What will she say when they're alone, with the truth laid bare? Have you ever faced a moment where forgiveness felt harder than revenge, but somehow truer? Emily Carter stood on that precipice, the sting of her brother Michael's betrayal still fresh. We left her at the Easter dinner table, reeling from a leaked email where Michael discredited her career to prop up his own. The power to destroy him was in her hands, but so was the chance to rebuild something better. As the Seattle night deepened, Emily chose a path not of vengeance, but of truth and healing. This is the story of how one family's broken patterns gave way to a new dawn, and how Emily's courage changed more than just her brother's fate. The dining room in David and Margaret Carter's home was heavy with silence after Michael's exit. Emily, 42, felt the weight of her family's eyes, her parents' confusion, her grandmother Clara's quiet pride, her boyfriend Thomas's steady support. The email she just read, where Michael called her a fluke to investors, burned in her mind. She could expose him, ensure his role at Cascade Solutions ended in disgrace. But as she looked at her mother's worried face, at Sarah, Michael's wife, grappling with his deception, Emily knew revenge wouldn't untangle the knots of their past. It would only tighten them. She excused herself, stepping onto the front porch where Michael sat, staring at the quiet street. The spring air was cool, carrying the faint scent of cherry blossoms. Emily sat beside him, leaving space for the years between them. For a moment, neither spoke. Finally, she said, "I saw your email, Michael. The one where you called me a diversity hire, said I'd never get your tech." His head snapped up, eyes wide with panic. "Emily, She cut him off, her voice calm but firm. "You didn't just lie about your company. You tried to erase me to save yourself. Why?" Michael's shoulders slumped, his usual bravado gone. "I was desperate," he admitted. "Next wave was sinking, and I thought name-dropping Musk, downplaying you, would buy me time." The admission hit hard, but Emily pressed on. "I've spent my life proving myself, Michael, and you made it harder. But I'm not here to ruin you. I want you to be honest, with me, with the family, with yourself." Michael looked at her, raw vulnerability in his eyes. "I thought I had to be the best," he said. "Admitting you were better at something. It felt like losing everything." Emily's heart softened. "We're not in competition," she said. "Your tech is brilliant. My skills make it viable. We could have been a team." The words hung between them, a bridge over decades of rivalry. Michael nodded, slowly. "I'm sorry, Emily. For the email, for everything." It was the first real apology she'd ever heard from him, and it shifted something deep within her. She didn't forgive him fully, not yet, but she chose to start there. They returned to the dining room, where the family waited, tense. Michael cleared his throat, his voice unsteady. "I owe you all the truth," he said. "Next Wave was failing. Emily's company saved it, and I've been a jerk about her career. She's the real deal, and I'm sorry I didn't see it." The room exhaled, shock giving way to tentative relief. Emily spoke next, her voice steady. "I've kept quiet too long," she said. "I'm proud of my work at Cascade, and I want us to celebrate each other, not compete." Her parents' eyes glistened, David with regret, Margaret with pride. Clara, ever the anchor, raised her glass. "To truth," she said, "and to family." The toast felt like a new beginning, fragile but real. Over the next weeks, the Carters began to heal. Michael took the advisory role at Cascade, learning from his manager and quietly from Emily. Family dinners became spaces for real talk, not one-upmanship. Emily felt lighter, her voice no longer dimmed to keep the peace. The emotional payoff was profound. Emily hadn't just reclaimed her place. She'd rewritten the family's story, trading rivalry for respect. The email's sting faded as she saw Michael try, awkwardly but genuinely, to change. Her parents asked about her work, their pride no longer tilted toward one child. Claire's wisdom had guided her to this moment, where forgiveness wasn't weakness, but strength. Emily's choice to rise above vengeance didn't erase the past, but it freed her future. She and Michael weren't perfect allies yet, but they were siblings again. Their skills complementary, their bond rebuilding on honesty.